What's going on, everybody? Steve here again with another skate park tour. This time I'm in Powell, Ohio at Adventure Park, which is behind me. Adventure Park is a 15,000 square foot Team Payne built skate park. And it's looking a little bit older. I can tell already the concrete's pretty weather beaten and the top of the smooth part of it's been eroded and you see more of the aggregate now. So it rides a little rough, and definitely some of the obstacles are a little bit dated in terms of what you'd expect to find at a skate park, but there's some fun stuff here as well, and it's got plenty of space and lots of interesting lines. So let's go check it out, and I'll show you everything that this skate park has to offer. Probably the main part of the Powell skate park that you see on photos online and all kinds of stuff is this large kidney style bowl, or swimming pool. Actually, it's meant to mimic a swimming pool entirely. This pool goes from about 3 feet, 3.5 feet in the shallow end, all the way to about 8 feet deep in the deep end. And it's got a couple standard features that you'd expect to find in a swimming pool. Now, the shallow end is very wide apart, as you can see, so plenty of flat bottom there, but otherwise it's very similar to a real swimming pool, where you've got, stairs to carve over down there. You've got a couple of death boxes, as they're called in skate terms, but that's basically the filtering system. You've got a love seat area towards the back there, and then there's another death box over there. Now, the coping itself is just concrete that was probably shaped with like a trowel or something, but it's not like an actual pool coping or anything like that. And as we get down into the pool, I'll show you this. It's got some tile to it along the entire side as well. So you've got that tile feature, and the coping itself, while there's no chunks or anything really, I mean, I'm sure there's some chunks in some spots, and certainly by the love seat there are. All in all, the coping is pretty smooth in most cases, so you don't really have to worry about like large chunks of it missing. But at the same time, if you're hoping for a pool with actual pool coping, you're going to have to go to probably a newer skate park. So this bowl, while the riding surface is still pretty good, there's definitely elements of this where like tile has fallen out and concrete's chipping and things like that. So that's kind of the problem with some of these features, particularly in places like the Midwest, where you get really cold, wet winters and hot summers, as the weather just wears on it. And it doesn't really stay in an ideal format. But all in all, if you're into pools, this could be an interesting thing for you to come check out. Now, the layout of the Powell Park is kind of interesting because the different sections are very distinct. And so you've got like a pump track area of sorts, or almost like a snake run, where it's lots of like flowy hips and bumps. No coping in this section at all, just really meant to carve around and ride and find interesting lines. So this is definitely distinct from the street area, which I'll get to in a little bit, and then the pool, of course. So all of these hips or bumps or what have you, they're all about 2 feet tall or so. Now, you can see it's a bit incomplete, so it just ends on one side into the grass. But on the other side, you've got all kinds of different shapes. So if I get up here on the top, maybe this will give you a little bit better sense for what you've got. But you have this more like taco shape style, or looks like a croissant. And then you've got like this little like three-pointed thing here in the middle, standard kind of bump out over there that's circular. And then like, a more of like a spine type of setup. But yes, all kinds of interesting lines in this section, and nothing that you have to worry about getting hung up on either. Really nice, smooth transition, assuming your trucks are high enough off the ground, or your deck's high enough off the ground because of your truck. So got that as an opportunity to kind of pump through. All right, now this long ledge, or in some cases you might want to call it a curb in front of me, this thing is about 50 feet long, only about 10 inches off the ground. So it is like your main low impact ledge. The coping itself is just a long square steel tube set into the concrete. So still kind of in good shape, but it's an older style. You don't really see that style of coping or edging on a ledge at a skate park anymore. But this is like going to be your main thing if you're wanting to get a nice long grind or slide, or come up with a street line. Unfortunately, there's really not, there are some down ledges and some kind of out ledge type features, but this is really your only flat ledge if you're just looking for almost like a box to session. Next, you've got this really long square down rail. This is the only rail in the entire park. This thing is about 14 inches tall off the ground and goes down a slope of about 16 feet. So it is a nice long rail, low enough to get on and slide the whole thing. But, if you're not comfortable with rails, you're going to have to probably learn how to skate a rail at a different park. But good news is you can skate this both frontside and backside, and it's long enough and mellow enough to where you can come from the bottom up and skate it almost like a bump to bar too. So it definitely gives you an opportunity to skate it from both directions, though you're going to have to really be carrying a lot of speed to skate it up, as opposed to just skating it like a down rail. And then that links to a hubble ledge that goes into a couple different directions, kind of mimics some of the older parks that I've shown in previous skate park tours. But as you can see, you've got one kind of going off in this direction. In both cases, about 14 inches tall to get onto. You could also skate it like a manual pad almost. And then on the ends of it, it's more like 2 feet of a drop to get down on. So it is mellow in that sense. You can probably get pretty wrecked on it as well. The one kind of downside, I would say, if you're coming from this direction, this side especially, is you almost have to ollie out or gap out onto it a bit because of how the top part of this ramp goes off in this direction, and it's not like parallel to the start. So that's a little bit weird, but that's how it goes sometimes with skate parks. And then this one is a little bit longer and more mellow. I would say this side is about 8 feet, this side is about 10 feet. So you've got kind of a mellow hubble ledge, and you've got plenty more flat ground to roll out of, whereas on this left side, you're going off down into like a bank area as well. So something to keep in mind there. Now down here in the bottom of the park, which is really the southeast corner, you see this 4-foot quarter or so. The dimensions for this quarter are a little bit strange because the ground still kind of slopes down towards this creek area over here. So you're going to be carrying a lot of speed into this. But it does give you an opportunity to get speed to turn around and hit some of the other elements of the park more towards the middle. But the problem with this quarter pipe is that it is definitely showing its age. There's like a lot of like wear and tear along the edges here. And I shouldn't really even say tear, it's just weather beaten. And some people have clearly tried to fix it with Bondo, but that's even falling apart now too. So it's just one of those things where the city probably needs to invest the financial resources to updating the park, and fixing some of these elements that clearly have seen better days. Now I'm starting to get in towards the middle of everything. As you can see from where we started, we now have this like small bank area where there's all kinds of different ways to do tricks out of the banks or on the banks, whatever the case may be. You've got this 2-foot tall camel hump to pump through and go in a number of different directions. I will say, because the back part of this park does not have the height that this side does, it kind of makes it almost flowing in one direction, where you're going to get a ton of speed going off to the southeast, but if you're trying to go to the northwest, it's going to be a lot of like work to pump through all that. Now, one of the fun elements of this park is this hip that has different kind of heights or slants to it, like different angles, as well as a Euro gap out to a manual pad. The manual pad itself is about 12 feet long across, about a foot off of the ground. So really easy to get off onto, coming out of this bank as well as this one over here. Now this bank in front of me to the left, this is about 3 feet tall or so. The one next to me is about 5 feet. And as you can see, you can skate the Euro gap in two different directions, which is kind of cool. But this definitely functions more as like your standard hip. So this is the view from that 5 foot, bottom of the 5 foot wedge. And you can see the hip going in that direction as well as skating the Euro gap. The problem with this is, as you can see behind me, you've got nothing to get you speed for that. So you're really going to have to hit this coming from this direction instead of this direction, which, you know, stinks. That could have been designed a lot better. So not a great setup there. Now probably, well, I'll say this. This is maybe the most predictable but most fun aspect if you like skating hips and pyramids. This is your really like perfect dimensions for a 3 foot pyramid. So really great to do all kinds of tricks coming off of these hips. And it sets up great on both sides, and you can get as much or as little speed as you want. Really up to you, but great for learning. Really good setup. So they did this part of the park really well. So this hip pyramid setup is interesting. So this, you've got a 4 foot ramp or so up to a much taller Euro gap that's about 16 inches tall that really doesn't have much flat at all before you land in another wedge. So skating this from either direction incorporates both the Euro gap as well as like an entire pyramid transfer. So you're going over the top entirely. Probably sets up a little bit better for a BMX rider than a skater, but still doable, especially if you come down from the top and come around the corners here. So this is definitely a challenge, but the good news is if you're not up to skating the Euro gap, you've got a smaller top to clear, only about 2 feet of flat, either coming out of a big 5 foot ramp or going down like more of a 2 footer. So this is great for learning as well, especially if you've never skated any kind of transfer before. Really helps you learn how to skate that type of element. I am not a fan of whenever skate park designs do not mimic real world obstacles, in the sense of like they go above and beyond how that real world obstacle would be set up. And that's true for this Jersey barrier. There is not a Jersey barrier on earth that would be this dimension in real life. However, that's what you get here. I would have much preferred a regular Jersey barrier here, but instead you've got this like 3.5, almost 4 foot tall behemoth of a barrier that, as you can see, still has gotten some grinding done on it, but really probably more or less skates like a wall ride, which is fine. But I would have preferred something shorter. It would have opened up more opportunity to do things like maybe over it, but you could still get wallies on either side, which, you know, are popular these days and something people would like. All right, we're at the very last elements of the park. Couple more hips, as you can see off to my left, but the other thing that I want to point out is this angled hubble ledge. This is much longer, obviously is only skatable backside if you're regular footed going down, or front side if you're goofy footed. Now the dimensions of this are such that, you know, it's about 16 inches tall to get onto, which is tall, but it actually angles inward a little bit. So it does cause you to have to like shift your positioning on your board as you're grinding down this. If like say you're doing a 50-50, probably works a little bit better for a crooked grind or a nose slide. The one drawback here is it's really tough to skate this like an out ledge, because you're going to have to get a lot of speed coming up, which is going to require you to come down that 5 foot ramp, pump up another smaller ramp, and then pump up this thing before you get to this top part. Not impossible, but if you're looking to go fast, it's going to be really tough to do that. So probably, again, something that could have been designed better, but it is what it is, and that's what you get sometimes. All right, so that does it for the Adventure Park Skate Park Tour in Powell, Ohio. If you're ever in the Columbus, Ohio area, maybe you'll want to come check this out. There's a couple newer parks in the area too that may make a little bit more sense to spend time at, more so than this park, but this can still be a fun ride. As you can see, lots of interesting lines and lots of flowy elements to make it fun. Definitely will get a workout in if you come skate here. But yeah, if you have any questions about the park, just drop them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.